Hola a todos, soy Javier Poveda y esto es De Bien TV, el canal donde te lo vas a pasar, ¿no lo va a decir Google?
De bien.
Eso es, mientras aprendes geografía, historia del arte y este año un poquito de economía y de empresariales. Este vídeo va dirigido a mis alumnos de tercero de la ESO de sección del CEIPSO en Encinar de Torrelodones. In this video we're going to study the first unit of this course, which is population. So let's go to the presentation. Here we are, Unit 3, population. So let's go. A population is a group of people who live in a territory or a place at a particular moment in time. Okay, so it's a specific moment in time, a specific moment. And the science that studies population is called demography, la demografía. This is a picture of Chicago in the United States of America. First, we have to study the evolution of the population, of the world's population. So first, until the Industrial Revolution, which took place in the mid-18th century. So from the Neolithic Revolution onwards, when humans became sedentary, okay, they lived permanently in a place instead of being nomadic, and started to develop agriculture and livestock farming, the world's population grew slowly and unevenly until the 19th century. Okay, there are two main events that affect the evolution of the demography of the world. The first one is the Neolithic Revolution, the second one is the Industrial Revolution. So in the first century, the world had 256 million inhabitants, and by 1750, the year that is considered to be the starting point of the Industrial Revolution, the world population was up to 791 million inhabitants. Okay, this is a nomadic settlement nowadays in Mongolia, and this is one of the first Neolithic, post-Neolithic settlements, sedentary settlements in the Middle East, in Mesopotamia. So this period, since the beginning of humanity until the Industrial Revolution, it covers this part of the graph pointed with this red arrow. Okay, since here this starts in 10,000 BCE, before the Common Era, before Christ. Here you can see the slow but steady and unevenly growth of the population until here, the starting of the Industrial Revolution, where it rose exponentially. So between the 19th and the 21st century now, where this period starts with the Industrial Revolution. It began in the 18th century and developed significantly during the middle of the 19th century. What happened here? The birth rate increased, the mortality rate decreased, and the world's population started to grow at a faster rate, at a way faster rate, at an exponential rate. So in the year 1800, there were 890 million people on Earth, and 100 years later, in the year 1900, this figure had reached 1.2 billion. Remember that the English people, they use billion for what we say to be 1,000 million, okay? So 1.2 billion means 1,200 million. From then on, the rate at which the population grew rapidly accelerated and reached 6 billion people in the year 2000. Right now, in the year 2015, the population exceeded 7.3 billion, and by 2020, the year in which we are today, it is around 7.7 billion. Okay, this is a couple of pictures of the Industrial Revolution, the industrial city and a power loom, un telar mecánico. And this period, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to the 21st century, is just this, only from here to here. Okay, in this very small period of almost 200 years, the population has multiplied by almost 8. Okay, it's a very fast, very rapid growth. And here you can see the world population growth since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, okay? Here, 0.9, 1.65, and then boom, para arriba. This is the growth rate. As you can see here in the 20th century, the growth population, the world population rate peaked at 2.1%. And from here, this is a projection of the world population growth until the year 2100. So the most important feature of this unit are the natural movements of the population, and they refer to the natural process of life, birth and mortality, as well as the difference between the two, which is called the natural growth. Okay, the number of births, well, the birth rate is not a number, la tasa de natalidad, la tasa de mortalidad y la diferencia entre las dos, que es el crecimiento natural. Okay, natural growth or natural increase. So let's study them. First, birth and mortality rates. The birth rate is the total number of births per 1,000 inhabitants, and it is expressed with this symbol per mil or per 1,000 that occur during a year in a particular place. And the mortality rate is the opposite, okay? The mortality rate is the total number of deaths per 1,000 inhabitants that occur in a year in a particular place, also expressed with this symbol, the per mil. Related to the birth rates, we have the general fertility rate, which is the number of children per woman in per woman which is fertile, which is considered to be the women aged between 15 and 49 years old. And related to the death rates, we have to know the child mortality rate, which is the number of children in their first year of life. So until they are, or before they reach 1 year old, per 1,000 inhabitants that have died in a particular location. So to know this, we have to take the number of births or the number of deaths and divide it by the total population, and the result we have to multiply them by 1,000, and we get the rates, the birth and the mortality rates. Okay, this is a world map in which the birth rates are depicted. Okay, as you can see, in the developed countries, the birth rate is the lowest here in Germany, for example, and in the less developed countries, the birth rate is high. This is the fertility rate, and as you can see, it happens more or less the same. The lower fertility rates are located in the most developed countries and the highest in the less developed countries. It happens the same with the children, the child mortality rate, and this is the mortality rate, and this is the map of the child mortality rate. As you can see, the highest values are always in the less developed countries, mainly in Africa, in the sub-Saharan Africa, and the lowest values are located in the northern hemisphere in the most developed countries. Also, we have the natural population growth and the life expectancy. The natural population growth is the difference between births and deaths, and this time this is expressed in as a percentage, okay, un tanto por ciento. And this percentage shows if a population is growing, if the natural growth is positive, stable if it's close to zero, or decreasing in size if it is negative, as well as the rate at which it does so. If the value is bigger, the speed is higher, and the opposite. Okay, to know the rate of natural increase, we have to first calculate the difference between the birth rate and the death rate and divide it by 10, or just to take the total number of births and the total number of deaths to calculate the difference and then divide it by 100. And also the life expectancy describes how long a person may live in years at the moment of their his or her birth. Okay, it's an indicator of the country's quality of life. So for example, in Spain right now, when a child is born, the life expectancy, so the number of years he is or she is expected to live, ranges between I think it was 81 or 79 for males and 87 for females. Okay, this is a map of the population growth, of the natural increase. These are the percentage, and the highest natural increase occurs in the less developed countries and the lowest in the most developed countries. And also we have a map of the life expectancy in the world, which is higher in the most developed countries because it's logical. Okay? And now we have to study the demographic models, so the behavior of the movement, the natural movements of the population. Very simple. We have the old demographic regime until the 19th century or before the 19th century, in which we have high birth and mortality rates. The purple line is the mortality rate and the orange line is the birth rate. Okay, here in this regime we have the natural increase or the natural growth is usually positive, but very little. Okay, and sometimes it is negative due to pandemics or poor harvests or wars or conflicts, etc. When the Industrial Revolution starts, first we have an improvement in the living conditions, mostly hygiene conditions and also medical conditions, health conditions. So first the birth rate remains stable and high, but the mortality rate decreases a lot. This means that the population growth starts to increase a lot. So the population increases a lot. Later, as the living conditions are improved for everybody, the birth rate starts to decrease until we reach Europe at the end of the 20th century, in which the birth rate is constantly decreasing, slow but constantly, and the death rate remains very at a very low values. So the natural increase is decreasing, is more and more few. No, esto está mal dicho. It's very low. Okay, and even nowadays in the more developed countries we have a negative natural increase. Why? Because the birth rate has dropped below the mortality rate. Okay, these demographic models only apply to the European or to the first world countries. Okay, because this is what happens in the less developed countries, in the third world countries. Most of them are in this stage or in this stage if they are in the way to develop. Okay, so now we have to talk about the distribution of the population, because the world's population is distributed very unevenly across the globe. Okay, there are not the same number of inhabitants in each part of the world. There are certain regions which are truly barren, less than 1 person per kilometer squared. Okay, this is the population density. And other which are extremely populated and which have very densely populated areas, which is considered to be more than 200 people per kilometer square. So the countries with this is a list of the countries with the highest populations in the world, mainly China and India, and this is a table with the percentages of the world population, okay, by country in this year. So the areas with the higher population densities are located in places that provide favorable conditions for economic activity, which is logical. Okay, these are the intensive agricultural areas, so we can feed these people. The areas rich in mineral resources, because they are very important for the industry, and mostly the most important, the most areas are the ones which are services and industrial areas, mainly the large megalopolis in the most developed countries. On the other hand, the areas with lower population densities are located in places that provide unfavorable conditions for economic activity, which is also logical. For example, the deserts, the rainforest, the jungles, the boreal forest, which are the forests which located close to the poles, and the mountainous areas. Okay, and this is a map of the largest built-up urban areas in the world in 2020. As you can see, most of them are located in Asia. This is a map of the population density across the globe. The areas with the darker red color are the areas which are more densely populated, mainly in Europe, the eastern part and the west coast of the United States, the coast of South America, India, China, and all Southeast Asia. This is another type of map of the global population density. The higher the spike is, the more populated the area is. As you can see again, India and China are the champions of population density. This is a very funny map because in this circle there are more people living than in the rest of the planet. Okay, as you can see, the population density of Southeast Asia is very high. Here the same. In this little area, this red area in Bangladesh and India, this area has the same population as all the blue area that is colored in this map. This is the agricultural suitability map, which marks the areas which are more suitable. The greener the color is, the more suitable for agriculture the land is. As you can see, here in Europe, in America, Southeast Asia, and some parts of Africa and South America. The white areas are the areas that are not suitable for agriculture. For example, the polar areas and the desert areas here in Central Asia, Sahara, the west desert of the United States, etc. Australia, blah, blah, blah. This is the world mining map. The minerals are very important for industry, so many people, well, not many people, but the areas which are rich in mineral resources are also populated. And these are the most important services and industrial areas. Again, Europe, America, and mostly Southeast Asia. And finally, we end with the migrations. Pardon. The migrations are the movements of people from their native countries to other places. Well, not only from their native countries, but from their normal place of residence, okay? The people who leave their countries are referred to as emigrants, and when they reach their new destinations, they are called immigrants. Emigrantes, inmigrantes. Remember, immigrants, double M in English, inmigrantes, N-A-M en castellano, ojo, inmigrantes. The migrations can be divided into three types, according to, first, the duration. The most migrations last a few years or are permanent, okay? They stayed in the destination for many years or for all the lifetime. But there are also seasonal migrations, for example, for work or for tourism, because tourism is another kind of migration, a temporary migration. Then we can divide it by the causes of the migration. Mostly they are economic causes, to look for a better life or a better quality of life or living conditions, but also because of a war, political, ethnic, or religious persecution. Okay, these are the refugees. And finally, we can divide it by the destination. It can be regional within the borders of the country, continental in the same continent but in a different country, or intercontinental when you travel to another continent. The areas which are less developed produce many continental and intercontinental emigrants, and the immigration countries are the most developed countries in the world. Okay, this is a map of the world migration since the year 1500. As you can see, many people migrated from Europe to America. America has been usually a very receptive country in terms of migrations, and also many people who has migrated from Asia. And here you have, this is the net migration rate. If it is positive in blue, it means that the country receives more immigrants than immigrants leave the country. If it's green, it means it's zero, which is even, it has the same number of immigrants and immigrants. And if it's negative, the orange ones, it means that more people are leaving the country than arriving in it. Okay, which are usually the less developed countries, as you can see. And we are going to end with some pictures of these migrations, the most dramatic ones, which are the war refugees. These are pictures of the Syrian war refugees, which are fleeing from the country and trying to reach the European Union borders. Here they are in Turkey, near the Greek border, and in Serbia trying to enter Hungary. Okay, these are pictures from this year, February 2020. Okay, but also in Spain we know a lot about this phenomena, because many immigrants from Africa come to our coast, and this is a picture of 1 month ago in the Canary Islands, okay, el puerto de Arguineguín en Gran Canaria. And the end. This is one of the most dramatic and sad pictures of immigration. This is Aylan Kurdi, a 3-year-old child who was found dead after a boat sinking in a Turkish beach in 2015. Okay, many people die in the course of the migrations. And that's it. Y con esto hemos terminado este primer tema, esta primera unidad de este nuevo curso de tercero de la ESO Geografía e Historia. Así que espero que os haya ayudado este vídeo para aprender, para comprender un poquito mejor el tema, y nos vemos en el próximo. Recordad seguirme en mis redes sociales, cdfdaisy, en Instagram, y twitch.tv/debienstream si me queréis ver jugando a videojuegos mientras os explico historia en ellos, porque yo solo juego videojuegos históricos. Muchas gracias por ver el vídeo y nos vemos en el próximo. Adiós y feliz Navidad.